Hey, well, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Collision Live every Monday, except for when we're on our Tuesday,
Like today.
like today. So it's Daniel here again, joined at the desk, as always, by Sam Camp.
Yeah, man, I'm in a collared shirt today, so
Yeah.
thought I'd dress up for the occasion.
I'm feeling a little underdressed for
on
this.
our Monday, Tuesday live stream.
Yeah. So again, if you guys have been following and watching the show every week, we usually do this on Mondays, but Sam was out of town, and I just couldn't handle doing the show without Sam. I just felt like it'd be a Sam-sized hole in my heart. So we
Means a
delayed
lot.
it, but we're here. We're here to talk about pop culture. A lot of stuff
Yeah.
happened.
Lot
The
of-
Emmys happened just the other day. You know, all celebrating the best in TV shows and actresses and actors, and but yeah, I didn't. To be honest, I don't really care about the Emmys. I think award shows, just in general, have just become a little tired. I think the ratings for the Emmys were continuing to
I
plummet.
didn't even know they happened, so if that's any indication.
Yeah,
of,
so again, if you guys are huge into the Emmys and you guys watched it, let us know in the comments if any big stories that came of it. I know Zendaya, set a record, youngest actress to win, some stuff like that. But I felt like there's some bigger stuff going on that we should talk about, things maybe that we are a little more into. So maybe let's just jump right into it. And Sam, I know
and things that I'm into.
yeah, things that we are into. What a segue to our first topic. I know we are both believers, but Sam, are you a believer?
Oh, I'm actually not a believer. Believe it or not.
Yeah, well, maybe the news from this week will help you become a believer. So Justin Bieber, J Biebs, as the kids call him, just released a new song. Again, he's always in the news for something, but to his credit, lately, for the stories that he's been in the news for haven't been of the same quality or kind as in his younger days. He's kind of been in some ways a success story of straightening up his life.
Yeah.
He's a married man, maturing, and lately has been a lot more kind of I think he calls it himself the new era, a lot more open about kind of reconnecting with his faith that he grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
If you read some of his, on Instagram, I'm sure we all follow J Biebs on Instagram.
Naturally.
He's straight up preaching in a lot of his things, talking about following Jesus and unpacking what that means. He's sharing quotes and things from Christian books that he's read. He's married now. He met his wife at a Christian conference, and from that point on, saved himself sexually until they were married. So he's been on the ups.
He's really taken a turn.
Yeah. So, but he just released a new song called "Holy" the other day. And again, I'll be honest, this is not a song that I would check out on my own. This is not going to make it onto my current running playlist or anything.
Likewise.
But it's an interesting song because I think it's in some of the most recent music from this sort of kind of coming out of this new era. It's called "Holy." He released it with a music video. Guest Chance the Rapper, who's another kind of musical artist that has been open about Christian theology and faith and his faith in God. But you check this song out.
Yeah.
What were your initial thoughts on this?
I thought it was okay. I've only listened to it just once this morning. It seemed like an interesting song. I don't know that I would call it a worship song. But I really just didn't get a chance to dive into the lyrics that much. But I don't know. It's I guess he's talking about just the relationship with his wife, and then towards the end of the song talking about sort of how that relates to his faith and his belief in God. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, and it kind of, in some ways, it follows the typical kind of Christian faith songs about. Is he singing about Jesus? Is he singing about a girl? Is he singing about both? I know it's especially not as much anymore, but kind of back maybe a decade or so. There was this sort of cringe where you'd have these songs that could, these love songs that with this sort of ambiguous you. It could be speaking about a girl, but they're really about God.
Yeah.
And it ends up kind of awkward with, if it's about a girl, then it's a little too worshipful. If it's about God, then it's a little too lovey and kind of, a little too icky. So this song at least for me, again, this is just my I feel weird talking about my interpretation of the Justin Bieber song. Kind of what I take
And yet
from it.
here we are.
Yeah, and yet here we are. But I actually, again, I like this song. I'm not going to be listening to this song over and over. It's not my style of music that I would normally listen to. But kind of my take on it is if you kind of look at break down the lyrics of it. Again, he starts off. It's pretty clear he's talking about his marriage. Running to the altar like a track star. Can't wait till he's older. He just has to go right away. And kind of the way that this relationship kind of raises him up. We could dig into whether calling it make me feel so holy if that's appropriate or not in terms of marriage. But as you get into kind of later into the song, it kind of switches gears, especially with the bridge part where Chance the Rapper takes over. And I pulled up, here's some of this is from that middle section that Chance does, but just some of the lyrics in the song. It says, the first step pleases the Father, might be the hardest to take, but when you come out of the water, I'm a believer. Just sort of that initial step towards God, that it is a step to take, but how it pleases the Father. I wanna honor you, bridegroom. I'm my Father's child. I know I know when the Son takes the first steps, the Father's proud. If you make it to the water, he'll part the crowds. And then the last kind of refrain that I think is pretty cool is, I know I ain't leaving you like I know he ain't leaving us. I know we believe in God, and I know he believes in us. And that kind of middle section kind of reframes the context of the song, because then when it returns back to when J. Beebs returns, when singing, running to the altar, it kind of puts it in a different context as far as, so what altar is he talking? Is he still talking about the marriage altar? And again, this is just my, he might come out in the news and say something else that contradicts this, but kind of my impression of the song is he's kind of using his marriage as a metaphor for kind of the love of, that God has for him.
Yeah.
And again, he's not the first one to do that. The Apostle Paul beat him to that metaphor by, a couple thousand years.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think it's important whenever sometimes there's some uncertainty when some of these kind of mainstream pop stars. We sort of went through this, or are still going through this with the Kanye West experience.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as Christians, what do we do when these celebrities that, I think if we were being honest, a lot of Christians have kind of looked down on or spoken ill of in the past, not maybe unjustly, when they start kind of speaking out and using their platform to point towards God. I think sometimes there's a hesitation about, as Christians, should we be applauding this? Should we be hesitant? What do you think? How should Christians?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, just pray that those people have some wise counselors around them, that they get plugged into a good church, that or at least have some advisors that can really help guide them on their path, because I think you could easily see these guys fall into some popular form of Christianity, some name it and claim it trap, or there's so many ways, and I'm sure there's so many people around someone who's famous who doesn't necessarily have their best in mind, but wants to kind of control what brand of Christianity they stick to, and then just make for a lot of these folks, especially like somebody like Justin Bieber, who has sort of grown up in the public eye. I think it's definitely it's a harsh road to walk no matter what happens, and so I think there are going to be a lot of critics, regardless of what they do or don't do. And I think as Christians, I mean, I think personally, like you just want to applaud what they do if they're exploring Christianity, if they're trying to figure out their life, if they're trying to get back on track or rediscover perhaps the faith of their parents or any of this stuff. I applaud it, and I say that's great. But they're going to be under a microscope with it, and so it's there's just going to be the good, bad, and the ugly that come along with that, because whatever you experienced as a private individual going through this faith journey, just imagine that was all public, basically. And so it's not a not a journey I would wish upon anyone.
Yeah, and I think
But
I think part of the hesitation I think for Christians is how to again we went through this with Kanye, is we've been burned before. We've had celebrities kind of jump on the Jesus train for a bit. It's kind of a trendy thing, and again the more that they live and the more that they kind of unpack what they mean by that, you realize it's not a very biblical Jesus that they're claiming. So we've kind of been burned by that, jumping on board. Yeah, they're on they're on our team. They're Christian. They're speaking
yeah,
out. And a lot of these celebrities and people aren't necessarily they're a spokesperson because of their platform, but they're not necessarily at a place, kind of maturity wise, spiritually, that they would normally be one. But again, my take, with both Bieber and Kanye, and then there's been others too, is that I think sometimes this mentality that Jesus can't, God can't get a hold of these celebrities, and that anyone that's famous, by definition, can't be sincere in this experience they're having. I think in some ways that says more about our view of God than it does
yeah,
about the person. That in a way we're almost affirming that, well, God's limited. He can get a hold of, just any normal person that slips into the back of a church service on Sunday. But if you're famous, then the world's too powerful and God's not powerful enough. And I think some of these statements or things that he's saying, if he wasn't a celebrity, if he just was in any Baptist church on a Sunday, would we still be kind of, well, we'll see if you
yeah.
really mean it. You say that, but are you gonna really stay firm? I don't know if we'd be.
I don't think we would be. I mean, again, I think because he's lived such a life in the public eye for so long, the good, bad, and the ugly, up until this point, I think the public, and I think even Christians, can be less forgiving when like all of your laundry has been out there for
Yeah.
for years, and you haven't been living the way we Christians think he should have been living, and so it's unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people in the church who are reticent to sort of just embrace with open arms a public individual who suddenly has been converted or is coming back to God, or any of these transformations. There is this reticence to say, well, what's your angle here? There's this cynicism, I think, unfortunately, that I think the church has. Again, not to place all of their hope in people, and we've talked about this, and you've written about this, just that how the church is often not wanting to put so much emphasis on individuals, whether it's public pastors of large churches, because when they fall from grace, we're gonna say, oh well, they weren't the real deal, or there was some other excuse. And so I think that's why a lot of Christians don't necessarily want to just get on board and say, oh yeah, this is great, let's all support him. But I think, I don't know, I think Christians should, as they would with any person who comes into their church and says, hey, I want to pursue this.
Yeah, I think too, something that sort of excites me too is, who knows what's going to happen, but I think you do see, for so long, it's almost become a default posture for us to think of culture and the arts and musicians as such like a secular anti-God. But you kind of see this more and more lately. There's momentum that people are becoming more open to talking about Jesus, talking about faith, and again, whether that leads to good or whether that leads to a distorted view permeating culture remains to be seen. But I think as Christians, we should be excited that there is, God is, it seems, working in that area of culture, and we should be willing to pray for these people and just see what all God's doing. But let's jump into the next. We'll leave Biebs aside for a bit and move to another celebrity, Baby Yoda, maybe the hit. You can see we're coming back into Baby Yoda season.
Oh yes, it's that time of year.
Yeah. So the trailer for the Mandalorian just dropped the other day. Season 2 coming next month. How, on a scale of 1 to 10 Baby Yodas, how excited are you for?
I'll take all 10 Baby Yodas, thanks, please.
Yeah. So this show, if you haven't seen, if you're newer to our channel, we did a we actually did an episode by episode. It's the first time we've done that for a TV show, reviews on our YouTube channel for season 1 of The Mandalorian. We're not sure yet what we're gonna do for this season, but yeah, we're a big Star Wars guy. Maybe me a little more
Yeah.
unashamed, hardcore than Sam. But we're both big Star Wars guys. We both enjoyed this season a lot.
Yeah.
Or the first season. What do you think? What do you just think of the trailer? We'll get into some other news surrounding this. But
Well, I mean, I think the big news was the appearance of a Jedi.
yeah,
So that's exciting. So anytime there's Jedi involved, yeah, I mean, it looks super fascinating, and I'm excited to see where the Mandalorian takes Baby Yoda
yeah,
across the galaxy to find his people.
yeah. And it looks. We might need to, judging by the trailer, maybe it's time to start calling it toddler Yoda because old Baby Yoda's growing up. At least it seems.
They grow
that.
up so fast.
They grow up so fast. But yeah, we're excited. It's, if you haven't, even if you're not a huge Star Wars fan, it's in some ways it's an easy gateway because it's fairly grounded in the stories. It's not super crazy fantastical yet. Maybe we're moving that way with Jedi.
Headed that direction.
There's banthas. There's a bunch of classic Star Wars stuff in there that I'm excited to nerd out about every week. But as culture does with all things, no good thing can come without a controversy, or so it seems.
So it seems.
And quickly, all the excitement of the trailer coming out was at least temporarily overshadowed by some of the news, some of the controversy. And Gina Carano she plays one of the characters. She's a former like martial art fighter, almost like The Rock, but real fighting. That's transitioned into as an actress. She's been in several things. She plays a character in the show, kind of a recurring former rebel soldier that now that the war's over, she's kind of out there being a mercenary and still trying to get that fighting itch. So she was a super popular character in the first season, but she posted, she's kind of been stirring the pot lately. She'd been getting some less than friendly people on Twitter, kind of really bullying her to kind of make a stance for the transgender movement, and to add her pronouns. She doesn't have the pronouns in her Twitter bio, and she wasn't gonna do it. She kind of pushed back, so she actually changed her her name on there to add the pronouns boop, bop, beep, obviously playing off of Star Wars kind of droid noises.
Little R2D2 humor.
Yeah, a little
for you.
R2D2. And she got there's a wave of backlash for that. People were, some of the comments and things that she received on Twitter, if you scroll down, were just vile. And just awful. Wishing people are trying to raise boycotts to get her canceled from Disney, and and there people, she needs to go die, and she needs to, you've erased my existence. And there's tons of stuff for a couple of days, and she held, she's not a stranger to a fight. She held firm, but eventually she did take the things out, and she released a kind of a half apology tweet, which really just stated her position, saying that she's not against that movement, or against trans people. She's not transphobic. I think part of the discussion is the Mandalorian himself, the actor Pedro Pascal. I believe his child is transgender, so people, she talked to him, but basically, her point was just that she's not pushing back against that. Just the kind of the bullying mob mentality that has surrounded that, surrounded that position. There's some of the hateful things, saying that's not what the movement should be about, or any movement should be about. And I thought it was just an interesting story, because we got into this a little bit with a couple weeks ago with J.K. Rowling. That was sort of some of her, different situations, but kind of some of what she had struggled with is, this bullying, kind of militant, agenda-driven kind of part of this movement. But what is your takeaway from this whole?
Well, it sounds less like she's stirring the pot, and maybe the pot is stirring her. But yeah, I mean, it's this idea that you have to conform to an ideology, and I think that's what it basically comes down to. If you don't, if you don't have these sort of pillars of what the trans community believes, or people who support the trans community, that have changed quite rapidly over a very short history, then somehow you're not on board, or that you have to do certain things in order to prove that you're not against the trans community. It just all kind of seems a little bit crazy. And so I think, it seems like she handled it pretty well, in my take, that, again, like, nobody's, I think very few people are like actively anti-trans, or just really wish harm upon anyone like that. But that's not enough. Like, you have to show fealty to being for something, rather than just saying, hey, like, I'm living my life, and I like all people, and you should do whatever you want. But that's you can't have that stance. It has to be within the parameters
Yeah,
of what one community, a very small community, wants you to be. And so
because there's almost layers to, and again, this is obviously, she was dealing with sort of that transgender activist segment of that movement, but I think the principles of this can be applied to almost any of these kind of more current movements. But there's layers to it, though, because there's sort of you start with, you gotta just accept me, allow me to be, then you move on from there to, we have to kind of actively affirm me, and support me, and then you kind of go to the next level of, you have to affirm me in how I'm telling you to affirm me, and you have to kind of act, you have to, meet certain standards. That's sort of where, I think for Gina Carano, she was sort of in the second layer, where she's affirming people. She's has interactions personal with the trans community, but she wasn't on board with being pushed to, okay, now you have to kind of march to our rhythm. And she's saying, hey, I don't need to put my pronouns, I don't associate myself as a trans. I don't need to put that in there to love these people or to accept these people. But I don't know, it's to me, it seems like with her and J.K. Rowling, there's others too, is sort of how, almost like we're reaching this breaking point of, how far can you go with that? We're now, we usually frame these discussions, in simplistic terms of, here's like the conservatives, and now they're against the liberals over here. And what we've seen lately is that even within the progressive liberal, not in a political sense, but just sort of ethical or ideology, you see there's division there, saying this isn't a sustainable, this sort of mob mentality, bully you. If you don't support exactly how we want you to, then you're canceled, and we're burning your books, and we're getting you fired from your show. That's not a sustainable movement, or it's not a sustainable kind of way to live.
Yeah. Well, and I would point people to a book by Douglas Murray called The Madness of Crowds, where he talks a lot about these issues. And I think even recently, I think there were, J.K. Rowling is releasing a book under a pseudonym, I believe. I don't know the exact details of this, but then there were like 100 employees of I forget the publishing house that she was under. I don't know if it's Penguin Random House. That's probably not right. I'm not sure, but several employees of the publisher that publishes J.K. Rowling's newest book under a pseudonym wrote a letter to the CEO. Simon & Schuster maybe is the publishing house, but anyways, was just saying they feel, attacked because there was some character in her fictional book that made them uncomfortable, and so they didn't want to work in an environment like that. And it's just sort of this nonsense, because when you take it to that extreme, then nothing, like, there'll be nothing. Like, there'll literally be nothing. And not only, is it just, you can't, and Douglas Murray talks about this, but that it's not enough to have, equal rights. It's you have to have equal rights, and we have to be a little bit better, than, it's like, we don't want to just have, women to be equal to men, but women are actually somehow magically a little bit better than men. And so it's the same, I think, mentality with the trans rights stuff, that it's like, well, you have to do these extra things now. It's not enough to just be like, hey, be a decent human. Like, hey, if you're not into the pronouns, that's fine. Like, we can still talk. But that's not enough. You have to be, and you have to do the things that I want you to do because I am this way or that way. And so it's...
Yeah, and it's just sort of like how far can you push it before things just sort of crumble in? And again, that's her, Carano was saying it, because she's saying, I think that movement is not doing itself any favors.
Right.
By you're actually, at a certain point, you're gonna cause hostility and resistance.
And I think you're seeing that now.
People,
yeah.
And you're seeing even people within that movement saying, okay, enough is enough. So again, we'll see. We'll kind of follow that. It seems like, the controversy, people move on to something new.
There's always something
I don't think
to
it's
be outraged about tomorrow.
I don't think it will affect anything, but I respect her for kind of taking a stand. Not, she says, hey, sorry if this was misunderstanding, but she didn't apologize for what she said, which is kind of shocking for, how these things usually play out. But again, this week at the Collision, we don't have any, at least we don't think, any movie reviews or anything, but we did release a new article yesterday in defense of wonder. This is one that I wrote, and again, this is the topic of wonder and kind of longing and intuition, and that's like, that's my sanctified drugs. That's what that's sort of a pet topic for me. I just think that's an important thing. Why do we, why are we so drawn to wonder? How does movies and the arts kind of awaken this within us? And I was looking at, I unpack it in the article, but if you look at like the top 60 kind of most successful, top money earning movies of all time, only 7 of them don't clearly have some element of the fantastical. And of those 7, you have like Batman and Fast and Furious and Joker, which are by no means grounded historical. Only of the top 60, only Titanic is actually based on an actual historical kind of real world event. I guess it's told in a very Hollywood, not realistic take. So kind of let's look at that. What does that mean?
Because there was definitely room for 2 people on that scrap of wood. Let's be honest.
But so I kind of look at that, saying, sort of defending the fact that, hey, we should be drawn to these movies and things that awaken in, this sort of wonder within us. And again, that's not the end of the story. There's that these movies won't satisfy us, but they do point us towards that. So again, I encourage you guys to check that out. It's a topic that I love, so I hope you guys will enjoy that. Any of this, as we end, any observations, things going on?
I just to go back to The Mandalorian, super excited about that. And, maybe if you guys know more about this than I do, but I recently saw a trailer for, I think it's called WandaVision, coming to Disney Plus. Yeah. Something real meta, I think, in like the Marvel universe. I don't
get it.
I don't either. So
I see
people of the internet, please help us.
Yeah, I don't.
But I'm interested. Like I don't know what it is, but I'm curious about it. So I don't know. Those are the only things that I've kind of seen bubble up to the surface this past week.
Yeah. I shared last week. We were celebrating Super Mario's 35th birthday. I got the new set, the new 3D, like I said I would. Playing it, getting some of that nostalgia fix. But one thing that stood out to me in playing these old, like Mario 64, which came out, not all that long after I was born. I remember playing it as a kid.
Yeah.
Is I feel like there's a case study for our culture in there. Like these games, you forget how punishing these games were. Like they are so hard, and it's such a contrast too. Because my kids play like Mario Odyssey, these newer ones. And man, you die, no big deal. We'll take a couple coins, put you right back where you left off. You keep going, don't worry about it. And in these old games, like if you make any mistake, if you miss a platform, it's like, okay, either you get a game over, and then you gotta spend the next 30 minutes climbing back to where you were to make something possible. And it's interesting to me.
That is interesting.
I don't know if it's just because of the kind of technical capabilities or how the mentality and philosophy of gaming has changed, but it, in some sense too, it's almost just like coddling. Like, back then it's like you earn it.
There's some layers to that.
You get punished if you mess up. You are, like I was playing it last night and just kept groaning, and my wife's like, are you even having fun? I was like, well, I think so. Half the time I'm having fun. Half the time I want to throw the controller away. But it's again, I've been playing that game I think I have like 35 stars. I don't remember how many I need to get, but it's been fun to revisit that frustrations and all. But any
That's
final
awesome.
thought as we're done? We'll be back next week.
Yeah, it'll
On a
be
Monday.
next week.
Yeah, our Monday show will actually be on a Monday.
Yeah.
Again, if you guys see any stories that happen in pop culture this week, this thing that you thought would be interesting to dialogue about, just post those on our Facebook, send those in a message. We're always looking for topics and things if there's something that you guys think is important to talk about, we're happy to break it down and talk about it. But other than that, I think
till then, I'll go buy a Alexa that is in the shape of a Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Or an Echo Dot or whatever it is that Amazon sells.
An essential need.
Yes.
But again, thanks guys for joining us. Sorry for some of the technical stuff that we had going on. Again, this is a Tuesday version. Our Monday version will be cleaner.
Yeah, way better. It's always better on a Monday.
But have a good week, guys, and thanks for joining us, and continue to collide with your world for Christ.